I'm working on something brand new here at the shop. You're not going to want to miss this, so let's get started. Well, good morning. Welcome back here to the shop. My name is Brett. You're probably asking yourself, where have I been over the last several months? Well, I've been right here working away. One of the main reasons I really haven't been posting any new content in a while is because I kind of felt like the channel has become kind of stale or repetitive. And, you know, I'm just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And believe me, I was even getting bored with what I was doing. So I can only imagine what you all were, you know, tuning in and seeing what I was up to, how you were feeling too. Now, maybe some of you out there, maybe all of you are out there, are okay with watching me work on kind of the same thing over and over. If you are, if that's okay with you, if you're getting something out of it, then please let me know and I'll continue on with that. Believe me, I love making these horses and it's just a blast for me. And like I've been saying here for the past year, I do have some new things I want to be introducing, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about here today. But if you're okay with watching me make some of the same things, please let me know and I'll continue to create that content for you. But to back up a little bit, we'll kind of review where we left off the last time. I think it was right around May or June. I was working on our horse named Larissa, and I was also working on the Blood Bay. Well, both of those horses are complete. They've gone to their homes. The customers are over the moon. The horse named Larissa, that dapple gray on the green, I'm telling you, that thing come out just beautiful. And I'll post some pictures here as I'm talking of how that turned out. And the color on that stand, it was kind of a fluke. I went in looking for a really dark hunter green and I came out with a green that I thought, uh-oh, after I painted it, I thought, uh-oh, that's not gonna look quite right. But it actually turned out, it was like an old color. That's what my sister had said to me when I showed her the pictures of that. It was kind of like an old colonial color almost. And it was just stunning. And Larissa, the client, was just over the moon when I brought that down to her in Pittsburgh, and she saw it for the first time. The Blood Bay made it out to its home in Colorado, and those customers are ecstatic over the work that I did for them. And so that's all done. So now we're kind of currently caught up. Shaker Woods, I worked on that in July and getting ready, and of course the show was in August, so I was working kind of through the summer and getting ready for the show. That show has happened. We're now into about the middle of September of 2023 right now, so that's kind of brings you up to speed a little bit. Now, one of the other the Keeneland racetrack down outside of Lexington, Kentucky, in Versailles to be exact, they put out their Master of Craftsmanship award, and this is their second year doing it. And you know, I was asking everybody to vote for me, you know, in the work that I do on the patron pick, but of course that's not the main award. The main award is the Master of Craftsmanship. And yours truly, I am really proud to announce that I did win that entire award. And so there's all kinds of fun things that have been happening behind the scenes. And one of them is that they are now going to be promoting me and my work a little bit. In one of the areas, we're going to put a horse down in their Mercantile at the track. And I think either at the track or at Lexington, and maybe both places. We're not quite sure yet. We're working out some of the details. But we finalized some things, what they would like as far as a horse to display. And of course, for sale in the Mercantile, we finalized all of that around the end of July. What they would like is a doll size thoroughbred that they can display. Now, I was really hoping that we can get into something a little bit bigger, like a medium or even a large. But unfortunately, they're kind of limited on their space. So for now, I'm going to put a thoroughbred, a doll size thoroughbred on bow rockers together for them. And I've already started working on it, and I've had this idea in my head for a few years, and I want to do a thoroughbred. I've been wanting to do one, and I kind of want that thing stretched out. That's what I have in my mind, is having those legs stretched out and having that head down and those ears back and mouth closed, you know, the whole thing, having it looking like an arrow going through the wind. And so a few weeks ago, I started on this little guy here. I started doing all the layout. We're going to go over to my board, my drawing board. I'm going to show you how I start a brand new horse. And this is the procedure that I do. But this is what I've been able to come up with so far. And I'm really, really happy with the way this is looking and turning out. We've still got a bit more detail to do. But for now, I think I'm pretty well ready to move on. And we'll go on to the body, we'll start carving the legs, and you know, we'll get this little head fastened down here. But I love the way the ears are straight back. This little guy is gonna look fantastic down in Kentucky. So I mentioned though, I have my board and how I do my layouts. So I thought maybe it'd be interesting here this morning we'll kind of back up a little bit, backtrack. And I'm gonna show you like how when I come up with an idea, how I lay it all out and get it from paper to this area right here, as far as getting it into the wood and getting into carving it. So let's head over to the big board over here on my wall, and I'll explain a few more things in detail for you. So over here at my board, my layout board here, what I've done is I wanted a place where I can lay out my drawings, you know, my new ideas that I've done. And I've taken two 4x8 sheets of MDF board. This is 3/4 inch thick, and I've just screwed it to the wall. And I've tried to line up my seam as best as I can, and I've gotten it really, really flat. MDF has a really nice, flat, smooth surface, so it's ideal for something like this, especially, you know, when you're trying to draw and lay out some new ideas. So it's just a perfect board for this. I use butcher block paper, and I get this at my local supply house. I think this roll here is about a 1,000-foot roll. It's 36 inches wide. So I'm able to pull out what I need. So I've put up a little piece of aluminum angle iron, and I can feed my paper up underneath this and just kind of pull it out. And then I also have some clips up here, and these are just clips from clipboards that you usually, you know, can get. I got these, I think a pack of like 12 or 16 on Amazon, and they weren't much money. They were probably like 10 or 12 bucks for a whole package. And so I've attached those to the top so I can just pull my paper out, clip it up here, and if I need to work on something even wider, like this plan underneath here, this idea, then all I have to do, I've got a pin underneath here, and I can just pull this pin, drop the paper down, and just pull it out, and then just tape the seam up, and then I've got a nice wide paper here layout that I can, you know, put my drawing on there. So that's kind of what I do, and this is kind of my my layout board, we'll call it. So here's our little horse up here on the wall, and the way I get this part transferred up here is I'll kind of I'll do a layout on my desk and I'll just draw something out, or I'll find maybe some sort of a photograph online like Pinterest or something, Google, I'll work from something like that. Then I can put it into my laptop. Then I have a projector that I can stand up here on the floor and project that image up on here. So that's kind of what I've done. From there, I'll kind of tweak it and play with it a little bit. So when I had this drawing up the first time, I didn't like the legs. The legs seemed to be a bit short, and it was probably due to the image being a little bit distorted. So I went ahead and I elongated the legs a little bit, and then I'd step back, take a look at it, and go from there. So thoroughbreds, of course, always, they have a long legs anyway, so I don't mind if these legs are even just a little bit exaggerated. I think it adds some interest to the overall piece that I'm working on. So from there, then I can go ahead and start blocking up for the body and for the head and the neck, and I can kind of separate everything, and then I can start getting ready to make my patterns from there. So I do know from doing these doll size, from the plans that the Rocking Horse shop sells, that we have our bottom body block, our middle body block, and our upper body block. And that, again, is kind of my own discretion. So it turns out this one is about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. The middle body block turns out to around 2 inches comes out. And then the top one, again, is about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. So I can kind of work with those measurements, and then I can start playing with it a little bit. So I've already noticed that the middle body block seems to be a bit thin, and so, or a little bit short or small at 2 inches. So I may just add about 1/4 inch to that. Believe it or not, 1/4 inch will do quite a bit. So I may make this, instead of 2 inches, I may make this to be around 2.25 inches. The bottom body block and the top body block, I'm okay with that for now. And of course the head and everything there, we'll just stick with what we are used to in the plans from the Rocking Horse shop. So that's kind of how I lay this all out. Now for the rockers, I wanted to kind of drop the curve on this horse. Again, this is going to be a doll size, so we really don't need too much motion, but I kind of, again, I'm thinking of that horse going through the air, through the wind with those ears back, and I want it like an arrow, so I wanted to lower the curve and the arch on these rockers. We're going to do it the same way as always. I put my center line here, and we're just going to work with 1/2 of the rockers, and then we'll just make 2 and join them in the center. So that pretty much hasn't changed. But you can also see here where I started with the rockers about 2.5 inches, 3 inches longer on either side. And again, it was just a process, and I don't know how this is all going to turn out. So far we're off and running, and we've got a good start. But what I do is I just I'll lay that rocker out, step back, take a look at it, and then I thought, well, it looked to be a bit long, so I started shortening them up until I come up with, a length that I think looks good. And so that's kind of where we're at. Now I've gone ahead and I've made my templates from that. So once I get my drawing laid out, I can take this down, take it over to the bench, get my carbon paper just as before, and go ahead and lay out for my templates and my patterns here. So that's kind of where we're at. I have all of my templates made, and so I do have, at this point, the bottom body block that is over on the bench, and I have the legs attached to it temporarily, just so I can take a look at it. And that kind of brings you up to speed where we're at. So now, from the template, there's our carved head, and like I said, I think we're pretty well done with it at this point. Let's move on, and we'll start carving the legs. We'll get those shaped, and we'll start getting glued up for our middle body block. But that pretty much brings you up to speed where we're at. So we're calling this one, this is the Keeneland Thoroughbred, or the Keeneland Horse, and that's what we're going to be working on for the next month or so, and we'll get that down to the track here. I'm hoping to get it done here by sometime October, and we'll get it down there and present that to the folks down there at the Keeneland racetrack at the Keeneland Mercantile. So let's head back over to the bench. Let's get busy, and let's get working on these legs. Well, I hope you were able to get a little something out of that as far as what it takes to take something from, you know, an idea in your head to paper and then bring it over here to the bench and then, you know, put it in block form so that it's ready to carve. So that's my process. That's how I've always done it. And like I said, I hope you were able to get something out of that. So here we are over at the bench. And like I said over at my board, that I already have my bottom body block all cut out and ready to go, and I went ahead and I have my legs all cut out as well. Now all I did here, these are not fastened as far as glued or anything tight. I'm going to take these back off. I just shot a brad nail in there, about 1.5 inch brad nail, just to hold those legs in place so that I can kind of, again, step back, take a look at it, see if everything's going to look okay, and it looks like it's going to. So I'm going to go ahead and take these legs off, pop them off, pull the nail out of there, and we'll get the carving on these legs. First of all, though, I do have a nice piece of basswood here that I already have planed, and I already cut it to my 2 1/4. This is going to be for the center body block. So I'm going to go ahead and get this clamped and glued. This will just take a minute, and we'll set this aside to dry, and then we'll come over here and we'll get set up, and then we'll start carving the legs, and we'll see what we can do with those today. So we know the length of our body is 12 inches. Okay, there are those two pieces. Those are our sides. And we're going to go 4.5 inches wide. So we'll just take a look here. So we need a couple of 2-inch pieces. And that'll work. We'll get some glue on this, get some clamps, and we'll set this aside to dry. Good. Now let's go ahead, we'll get set up, and we'll start carving these legs and see what we can do with these today. Okay, let's go ahead and let's get our legs clamped down, or at least one leg clamped down. We'll start with our front legs first. We'll set the rear aside, and we'll just take a look and see what we can do with these, and let's see if we can't get these worked out and get them carved today. I think what I want to try to do first is get these legs round. The quickest and easiest way I found to do that is just use my Sandaflex with 80 grit. And we can just put this on the drill and we can round this real quick. So here just a minute ago, I was just kind of getting a feel for how I want this leg to look. And you know, this is One of the areas that I struggle with when I'm playing and carving these horses is how much detail do I want to get into. And, you know, this is a doll size horse. It's going to be really hard to get a lot of detail out of this horse. I want to try to give it as much definition as I can, but yet I want to be mindful of how much time it's going to take me to do that, because in my opinion, time is money. And I want to put out a nice looking horse, especially for Keeneland, but on the same token, I want to be able to do this so that, you know, this is going to be for sale, and we'll see how many sales we get from this in the future. And if I do get more sales, or even down the road, even here at the shop or on my website, if somebody wants to order one, then we want to be able to produce this fairly quick. So anyway, so I'm just kind of laying out a few lines here, thinking about this front leg here is going to attach to our bottom body block. And once this is carved and glued, and I'm going to carve it up to about here, and that way this is still pretty well rough, that once we get everything glued and we get our middle body block glued up, everything glued up, then we can go ahead and continue to carve up into this body. A lot of these seams, everything is just going to kind of just melt away. You know, this leg is just going to continue on up into here. So with that being said, I'm just kind of, you know, laying out, you know, where I think some of these joints are going to be. You know, my hoof right here, I'm going to try it here, you know, and bring this around, something like that. And this is going to be a lot thinner in here. So we're going to make this hoof kind of, you know, we're going to define this hoof a little bit. Then we've got a joint right here, and of course our joint here in the middle. So again, let's go ahead, let's put it in our vise, and let's set our Sandaflex up in our drill. Let's just go ahead and round all of this over. We'll start with that, and then I think we'll just start here in the middle, and I don't know, we'll just kind of go with it and see what happens. Hey, the worst that we can do is just kind of, hey, screw up, and if that happens, then, you know, we'll just deal with it. We'll make another leg, and we'll just continue to work it until we get it right. So let's just see what we can do here. Again, this is 80 grit paper that's in here. This is going to take it down really quick. Now I'm just kind of taking my time with this too. I'm not getting real aggressive. Again, this 80 grit paper, this could take and make this leg disappear really, really quick. So I'm just using really light pressure along here, and I'm just kind of letting the tool do the work, and I'm just kind of watching how this leg's developing as I'm doing it. take a look and see what we have here. So this is looking pretty good. So this has a nice shape in here. And if you notice when I started, I kind of went a little aggressive here and I went a little aggressive here on the top and up underneath here on the bottom. And I'm leaving this center part here just a little bit squared off. I just knocked the edges off just a little bit. And that kind of starts giving you that shape. So I'm liking that. We'll put our lines back in here. And that's going to be our hoof somewhere in there. Something like that. And I think I want to kind of run this down just a little bit here. So I think what I'm going to do now is just kind of carve this down a little bit up underneath this leg right here. We'll take this part down because this is supposed to be a lot thinner. This actually is going to come in, oh, we'll say something like this along here. So let's go ahead and carve that out and let's just take a look at it. Again, a lot of this is just going to be trial and error. Something like that. And now this part in here, right above the hoof, we want to thin that out. So I'm going to go ahead and try to carve that down, and then we can kind of go in and sand it, even just sand it by hand, and we'll see if we can't shape this a little bit. Okay, well that's working. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue working on this here a little bit off camera, and I'm going to try to work some of these details out. And then once I get them to the point that I like it and see where this is going, I'll bring you back in, and then, you know, if this turns out okay, then we'll do our second one kind of together. But let me go ahead and just kind of work this one out and focus on this instead of focusing on camera angles and trying to, you know, get the shot. And then I'll bring you back in here and show you what I've got. Okay, well, that's looking, you know, pretty good. I've spent probably about, 45 minutes on this leg right here. And, you know, I'm really happy so far, again, how it's going. Keeping in mind that we're not trying to go anatomically correct or anything. This is a child's toy. This is just a doll size horse that we're making here. Now, one of the little mistakes that I did is I took off, probably when I was carving, I got a little bit too excited and went to a little bit too deep maybe on this side, but that's not a problem. I'm not concerned about that because this has to get fitted to the rockers. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll mark this one. Maybe it'll go on this side of the horse. So we'll say that's the right side facing. And that way it's going to show a little bit more definition on the outside. And then we'll go, when we notch these hooves for the, you know, for the rockers, then that's all going to kind of blend in anyway. So I'm not too concerned about that. But, you know, I don't want to go crazy on detail as much as I'd like to. And this is, again, where I have trouble because I'd love to just sit here and work on this for a couple of hours on one leg. But, again, time is money, and I want to get this horse to a point where, you know, down the road, I can kind of knock them out. And that's why I wanted to do this off camera, because then I can kind of focus a little bit more and not worry about, you know, trying to bring you folks in here and getting camera angles and all that other stuff. So that, plenty of time for that, but I just thought it'd be a lot easier right now to just focus on this horse. You know, again, if this is just a standard doll size horse or one of my medium horses or something like that, it's no big deal because I've done so many of those that, you know, I've kind of have the roadmap on how to do that. But when you're doing something brand new like this for the first time, then I'd like to just kind of really sit and just really focus on that one. And then like I said, what I can do when we go to do this one, then maybe I can walk you through it, or I'll do another one and I'll just leave the camera run. And that way you can kind of watch as to how I did that. I'm just using a combination, different gouges. I used my drill with my, you know, my little sanding wheel on here, just trying different things to try to get it to a point that I like it. And yeah, again, I like that. So what I may do now is just go ahead and work on one of the back legs, and then we'll have a front and back leg. And that way, you know, we can get in here and I'll get the camera set up, and then you can just follow along as I do a front and back leg. You can just watch how I do it. So, but yeah, so about 45 minutes, you know, kind of got it roughed in, and I think that's enough of a start that we can set this one aside and work on the other ones and then get everything attached to the body. So that's where we are at. Good. Moving on. So I went ahead off camera and I was working on the rear leg too. I just want to try to get these worked out. And by no means is this, you know, a finished leg, but it's got a pretty good start on it. And I kind of got a good idea of the direction I want to go with this. There's still a lot more carving I want to do on it. You know, I'd like to go in here a little bit and make this area here above the hoof just a little bit thinner, but yet I don't want to go too thin, because once I fit this to the rockers, I don't want it to be so thin that it may snap. So I've got to be careful about that. But other than that, you know, this is a pretty good start on it on both of these legs. And I think what I'm going to do, the plan now, is I'm going to go ahead and once I get all four legs carved, or at least to this point, I'm going to go ahead and get them glued down tight to the bottom body block. And then we'll go ahead and get the entire horse carved. And then we can kind of step back again, take a look at some areas, revisit, go back into these legs maybe and revisit and add a little bit more definition and, sand them a little bit better. But no, I'm real happy with that. I think that's a good start. And let's just go ahead. Let's work on our other two legs. I don't think I'm going to go into detail yet because I'm still trying to figure this out myself. This is, again, a brand new design. There's not going to be much yet to explain. I'm just going to go through the motions so you can kind of watch me as I put these two legs and we'll carve them and get them down to at least this point here. And then, like I said, then we'll kind of go back and we'll revisit some things and see what we have. So I'm going to go ahead and get these clamped down and we'll start getting this rounded and just kind of, you can follow along. Well, good morning. Welcome back here to the shop. It's a new day. Before I left last night, I went ahead and glued the legs to the bottom half of our body. And while I was kind of thinking about things overnight, I think I'm going to change the plan up again. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish gluing the entire horse up so that next week when we get in here to the shop, we'll just be able to just jump right in and we'll get this horse all carved. There's not much, to gluing the entire body up, so it won't take that long. We already have our middle body block here, so it's just a matter of, gluing up the middle body block, the top, and then adding the head and the neck. But I think that's where I'm going to leave things for this week. So come on back next week and we'll jump right in and we'll just start carving and rough this entire horse in. Then we can kind of step back and we can take a look at it and continue to fine tune, the legs that we worked on and just, see what we need to do to, make this horse look like a nice little thoroughbred cutting through the air. So once again, I really appreciate you all hanging out with me here at the shop. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, especially if you're getting something out of this. Love to hear from you. Drop a comment down below, and we'll see you here at the shop again next week. Take care.